Okay. So, good evening, everybody. What I wanted to do tonight is really to look at something that that happened to come up. It came up in a bit of a strange way, and as we go through the show, I'll explain to you what happened. So, well, let me tell you what happened. What happened is the following. And you'll excuse me, this week I don't have a whole PowerPoint. I just haven't had a chance to put it all together, but I do have sources, of course, because we can't operate without sources. And so we'll go through the sources on the screen. So this is what happened. What happened is that I was at a wonderful function over Shabbos. And at this wonderful function over Shabbos, they served sushi. Everyone loves sushi. But while they were serving the sushi, in addition to the sushi, there were chopsticks. And we all know what the chopsticks look like. They're chopsticks that you get in a little packet, then you break them open and you eat them. So now I'm going to ask you guys, is anything wrong with that? Could you think of anything wrong with that? That you got your chopsticks, you take your chopsticks, you open them, you take them, and you start eating your thing, assuming you know what you're doing with chopsticks. So is there a problem with that? So I'm going to throw that out as a question, and then we're going to see whether there is or not. Now, don't assume that just because I've called the sheer sushi, that there is a problem. If you feel that there's a problem, let me know what you think that problem is. Okay, let's do that. So, anybody want to say? Don't worry, no one will shout at you if you're wrong.
I don't think there's a problem.
You don't think there's a problem? Okay.
It could be a problem that you're now creating a clip because you can't use them when they're together. And now when you move them apart.
Okay, maybe.
Okay, so now we are ready. Now we're talking. Is there a problem? Because what the problem could be is that you're metaking clean. Now, the truth is that I didn't even think about that. So when I got to there, I saw the sushi. You know, sushi is like makes people nuts. So I saw the sushi, I took the sushi and I took it and I opened it up. And then my sweet little Sarah, bless her heart, came to eat her sushi and she brought me the sticks and she said to me, "But Daddy, can you break them? It's Shabbos." From the mouth of babes. Now, she didn't know the technicality of the halacha, but it's important. So let's try and understand this. So in order to us to understand it, what we're going to do is we're going to go back into some primary sources. And once we've got those primary sources, then we'll try and apply them to a few things. And it's not only sushi. Now, just to make clear, you can eat sushi on Shabbos. That's not an issue. It's how you do that and what you do with the chopsticks that we're talking about. Okay, so let's go. So I'm going to share my screen and let's go into it's quite a technical discussion to a large degree, because without understanding the technicalities of it, we can't really get to give a final understanding of what we're supposed to be doing. But sorry.
Afternoon, Randy.
Excuse me?
How can I help you?
Can I ask everyone, if you don't mind, just to put yourselves on mute just while we're going through, just so that we don't have any background noise. Okay, but please feel free to ask questions, to pipe up with anything that you'd like to, just so that we can have a proper story. Okay, so let's go. So it starts off, if you remember, I just want to do a bit of chazorah, a little bit of repetition. So we had our whole Shabbos discussion starts with this Mishnah in the Gemara in Shabbos and Ein Gimel, where it speaks about the different avot malachot. So the Mishnah says, avot malachot arbim chasa echad, the avot malachos are 40 less 1, hazoreh, achoresh, and it goes through all of the different ones. That's in source number 1. In source number 2, it also speaks about, it continues. It's the end of the Mishnah. If you write 2 letters, or you rub something out in order to write 2 letters. If you build, you destroy, you extinguish, you light a fire. Hamakeh b'patish means that you hit with a hammer. That's what it means. Or if you carry from one rishus to the rishus, these are the 40 minus 1, Arba malachos, avot malachos. So Rashi says, what does it mean by makeh bapatish? What does it mean that you're hitting with a hammer? I mean, how does hitting with a hammer do anything? I can crack a nut open with a hammer. On Shabbos, we learned that. You can use a hammer to crack open nuts. What do you mean hitting with a hammer? So Rashi is makeh bapatish, hu gemar kol malacha. That is the conclusion of the work that's being done. The final hammer blow is the conclusion. Shekain, why? Because an uman makeh bakurnis al hasadan lach likor, because that the uman, the artisan, will tap on. Let's say you've got a metal thing, so you'll tap on it just to straighten it out, to make it fine, so that there are no bumps in it, and in doing it, lach likor begemar malacha, to finalize the malacha, to finalize that thing. So let's say a person orders a sheet of metal, a flat sheet of metal for whatever, or a dish, or whatever it is. And in order to just finalize the aspect of the dish, you give a little tap with a hammer. That little tap, it could be the smallest little tap of anything. That little tap is the gemar malacha. It's the conclusion of the final thing that needed to be done for that vessel. That is an Issur D'Oraisa Gemara. It's a complete Issur D'Oraisa. Right? Because that's the gemar malacha that completes the vessel itself. So that's according to Rashi. The Tosfos say, okay, what is makeh bapatish? So he quotes Rashi. Shemafot says, a person you smack on the rock after it's been broken up. It's from a different Gemara. But any Ellery says that doesn't seem to be the same. Why? The B'mishkan lo have a binyan avanim. He says that it's all about the kalim. It's all about vessels. That ultimately this concept of makeh bapatish is the thing that they would do is the last bang in order to finalize the vessel in whatever you do. So what's it all about? So we see that in the Mishkan, the boards of the Mishkan were assembled, okay, made out of wood. And then they were covered with this very thin layer of gold. And in order to get the boards in perfect symmetry, they would hammer it with a hammer. So you have this beautiful gold overlaid on these boards. And in order to make it pure, it's done. The final hammer blow that finalized the symmetry of the gold, that's to finish the job. So therefore, the malach of makeh bapatish refers to this act of completion. And this is the key. Any act of perfecting an object or rendering it fit for use is considered makeh bapatish, even if it doesn't involve a hammer. A hammer is just the indication. A hammer is just the way it is. So whenever we talk about fixing a vessel of some sort, so that's problematic. So let's take a simple example. You get those plastic. COVID has given us a lot of plastic. Right? For whatever reason, it's better to use plastic. So we use plastic, and sometimes you get on the plastic fork or knife, there's like little pieces of like stuff that wasn't taken off. So what you do is very simply, you just you rub it off and it comes off. If you do that, that's an Issur D'Oraisa of makeh bapatish, because that completes the vessel. And that's something we have to be aware of. And we're not always aware of that because it's a bit of a strange malacha. It's interesting that the last two malachas is makeh bapatish, another one is carrying, and those two are the two very strange ones. But let's try and understand a little bit more in order to go into it. Okay, so the Gemara in Shabbos speaks about these things again and says, Rabba v'Rabbi Zaira. I'm here where I was highlighting it. Rabba v'Rabbi Zaira, the Amrit Harvayu, that both of them say, Kol midi de isbei gemar melacha chayv mishum makeh bapatish. They make it absolutely clear that whenever you complete the thing that you needed to complete, that is makeh bapatish. Okay. Then from that, we now look to the halacha. And we look to the Mishnah Torah. The Mishnah Torah is the Rambam. And the Rambam speaks in the halachas of Shabbos, in the 10th perek, in the 10th chapter, halacha tes zayin 16. And he says the following. And it's quite something because, we always think of malachas as creative activities, as doing something that changes the form of something into another, cooking, tearing, tying a knot, whatever the case is. And here the Rambam is very, very emphatic. Hamakeh b'patish haka'a achat chayav. If You have to do one small little action, just to boom, knock something with the hammer. One small little hit, you chayav. You're obligated. You've done the isur, the oraisa of the malacha. Anybody who does something, shehu gemar malacha, that is the gemar malacha. And if you do something without hitting, actually, but you do something else, that's the gemar malacha. We'll see what that means. So then you chayav. Well, makeh b'patish doesn't have to be with as we said, it doesn't have to be with the hammer itself. Keitzad. What's the example? So look at these examples. It's like so interesting. Like, why would there be problems of these things on Shabbos? A person, you breathe into someone's blowing glass. So you breathe into it. You breathe into the glass thing, into the glass blower, and that's a tiny little bit of just maybe opens it or starts something with it. That in itself is an issur d'oraisa. And if you somehow narrow a little bit the opening or something of a vessel, because that's how you want it, even if it's a tiny amount, that's also an issur. And a person who's magara, you just do a small little amount of smoothing down. You make a small little hole. Whether it's in a piece of wood or in a piece of metal, if it's in a building, if it's in kalim, it doesn't make a difference. What it is, that is the that in which you've made that you make that change, which completes the vessel. That's a tolda of makeh b'patish. That's a secondary level of going against the malacha of makeh b'patish, and you're obligated to on all whatever punishment it is that you're obligated for having been mechalel Shabbos. And now he says, b'chol petach. This is an important one. Any opening she'ena asui lahachnis u'lahoitzi, that is not made lahachnis, to bring in, u'lahoitzi, and to take out, ein chayavim ala siyasa. On that, you're not obligated on its creation. So listen carefully to what he says again. Kol petach she'ena asui lahachnis u'lahoitzi. What kind of opening would you make in a vessel, for example? So it could be very simple. You've got a tin of tuna, and you open up your tin of tuna. So when you open up your tin of tuna, what the tin was a tin that was closed, and now you've opened it. Is that an issue of makeh b'patish? You've completed the tin of tuna, you've opened it up. So that's the answer is no. But the point is, those are things that we have such consciousnesses. But one of the issues there is that it's only the reason why you open it was what simply lahoitzi, to take out the food. You don't have to worry about that, because whenever it's just to take out the food, it's when you take it in order to make it something that you can bring in and take out, that becomes an issue of makeh b'patish. Okay, I know this is technical, and we're going to get to some of the practical things, but I just really want to go through the technicalities just so that we come clear with that. Okay, comes along the Mishnah Torah later on in Perek Chaf Gimel and says the following, because we're going to see that makeh b'patish doesn't only apply just to some things, it applies to a whole lot of other things. Kol davar shu gemar malacha. Anything which is a gemar malacha, which is the completion of the malacha, chayav alav mishum makeh b'patish. Exactly what he said before. If you complete it, you're obligated. Mipnei zeh. Listen to this. Hagoyrer kol shehu. Anybody who, goyrer is, you drag something along. Or if you fix a kli, you fix something with in whichever way you fix it. So, for example, let's say you've got a broken, cup, and you put it together somehow with a little bit of glue. That's chayav of what? It's chayav on the metakein kli. That's chayav on fixing the vessel itself. It's also chayav on other issues, but let's look at that for the moment. Lefichach, therefore, as he says carefully, why do we not play musical instruments on Shabbos? Why do we not have that as part of our thing? You know how leket would be. It's like you come into Friday night, and it's and you feel like a choral type of of Kabbalat Shabbat, and then they pull out the organ and they're playing, and it's so lekker. I mean, some aspects of our religion do that, right? Or you put out the guitar, you want a bit of a vibe. So why aren't you allowed to do that? Asul hashmiya kol shel shir b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to hear the voice of song coming from Shabbos bein bekli, whether it's from a kli, shir, from some type of instrument, kagon kinorot and valim, bein b'shadim, or anything else. And now he says, now this is something you have to look at, and we'll look at this carefully. Even to hit with your finger on the ground, or ala luach, or on the board, or achat keneged achat, or to clap your fingers like this. The way the people who sing do such things, or la kashkeshes are egoes latinoik, or la sachek boy bezur kadei l'sheyishto, or to shake like a shaker. All of those things are asur, not in and of themselves, but they're asur, they're prohibited because we're concerned that you might come to be mataken klishir. You might come to fix an instrument. Now, this is an important idea. Are you allowed to clap your hands? So many say you can't. Why not? Because it's part of this musical instrumentation that we're worried that you might come to fix the musical instrument. It's quite a far-fetched thing. But I remember in the old days, they played musical instruments, part of the instruments with their hands. There was a lot of different aspects of that. But so therefore, definitely, the time of more traditional music, then definitely one couldn't do anything. But nowadays, there are many who say that you can bang on the table. That's not a musical instrument. That's not how we have our instruments, number one. And no one who's clapping their hands is going to come to fix the guitar, right? So we don't have to worry about that, according to many. But others say we have to be careful. And so therefore, many say clap like that, which is like with the back of your palm onto the palm. So it's something different. And therefore, you'll always be aware that the reason you're clapping like that is so that one doesn't come to do something inappropriate. But the point of this whole thing really is to point out that the concern is fixing something, because when you fix something, it's makeh b'patish. When it's makeh b'patish, it's a malacha. It could be a malacha d'oraisa. So that we have to be careful. And that's the Gemara, the Gemara and the Rashis and all the different mafarshim that go on it. Now, we spoke about making a hole in something. And here the Gemara speaks about the making a hole. I don't want to go into that now because I want to go into the meat of the things that we really need to speak about. So we're just going to miss out. Comes along the Shulchan Aruch and says the following. So let's say you've got clothes, you've got a new shirt or a new something, and there are all these little like knots or little ends on the end of the garments. Now, obviously, we don't have that any longer because we buy from where we buy from. We are not necessarily making all our own clothes, but let's say you make your own clothes and you have these little knots from the sewing. Okay, so if a person would remove those knots, locate means to cut off. They would remove those little knots. They'd remove those little bubbles, whatever it is. In such a case, chayav mishum makeh b'patish. They would be liable because of makeh b'patish, under one circumstance, under one condition. That's if the person is particular about them. Because if you're not particular about those things, so then it doesn't make a difference to you. That garment is complete without those things cut off. But if you are makpid about them, then what? So then the garment is only completed at the time that you take those things off. And so therefore that becomes the ultimate expression or an ultimate expression of this concept of makeh b'patish. Okay, so why is that? Because as the Turei Even says over here, the Turei Even is very simple, because it's the Gama Melocha. It's the completion of the creation of that garment. Okay. Says the Turei Even, what does it mean that he's strict on this thing? And that's we're going to start. Now we understand it. Perush, that the only reason you're prepared to wear it is when you have all that other stuff cut off. And that's why when you take specifically with kavana, you would take off these little extras on the side of the garments. But if you're like you're just working and they come off, so then that's nothing because you didn't care, because you put it on even with those things on. Okay. So, having said all of that, what about the chopsticks? Let's go into that. So I've got a picture of the chopsticks over there, which you've all seen. I'm going to ask you now, having understood the aspects of this concept of makeh b'patish, that when we do makeh b'patish means no matter what you're doing, even the smallest action, even a little dink on a piece of metal, that smallest action that then creates or finalizes the creation of the kli of that vessel, that's makeh b'patish. You tell me, can we use these chopsticks on Shabbos?
Not if they're joined like that. You can't break them.
Not if they join like that. 100%. The minute you break them over, the reason I'm giving the shiur is actually to do my tshuva on what I did on Shabbos. And again, I know you're smiling, but it's very true. It was a big thing for me that I realized that I wasn't being conscious on my Shabbos. It was just like, Joe, eat the sushi, carry on. And so when it comes to chopsticks like this, we can't, because the minute we open it up, we create a new kli, and we and that becomes problematic. I saw when I was researching about this that there are 2 very big sushi delivery places in New York, and when they deliver their sushi on a Friday, there's a big sticker on the sushi that says, "Please separate your chopsticks before Shabbos." So my plea to everybody here is please separate your chopsticks before Shabbos. It's quite a nice word. You can make all the drosh on that, but that's the point.
Can I just ask you a question? I know you spoke about the can of tuna. So previously I'd heard that if you are making like a container, that you had to make a hole in the tin. You know what I'm saying? Where does that come from? So
the many people hold that because if you make a hole in the tin, then you're destroying the container.
Yeah. But is that really necessary, or don't
So
you
not
hold by that
everybody-
today?
So not everybody holds by that, because nobody reuses a tin of tuna. And the truth is, most of us know that you don't even leave the tuna in the tin because it's not good for us. It's not good. You get all the draw from the tin. So many say that you don't have to, because you just take out the tuna and you throw it in the dustbin. You haven't made a kli. Okay. But there's nothing wrong with being extra strict sometimes to follow the things. Okay. What about opening a can or a bottle? So this is fascinating. And there's a lot in this, and I'm just going to throw out some ideas. Okay, so the Chazon Ish was very strict. The Chazon Ish was the great leaders of Torah in Israel, I think in the 50s, 60s. Amazing human being. So he says that a closed can is an unfinished utensil. Why? Because you can't use it. It's a closed can. When you open it, you create the utensil, right? That's the story we just said, Yagan, all right? And then when you create it, you do two doraisa issues, okay? Makeh b'patish, okay, which is completing the vessel, and boine, which is building, because you built the vessel as well. So therefore, according to the Chazon Ish, a can is a problem. A bottle, on the other hand, is a little bit different. Why? Because the cap on the bottle and the bottle are completely separate entities. So when you take the bottle off, right, so then you're not creating a new bottle. You're just opening up the bottle. Okay. The Rav Moshe Feinstein seems to disagree with him, and not everybody agrees or disagrees. There is a point here that needs to be discussed, and that's when it comes to these bottles. And the point that needs to be looked at is this idea that we come to with bottles. There are different types of bottles, and the different types of bottles we need to understand. So there are, not bottles, bottle tops. So there's a plastic bottle top, and there's a metal bottle top. And traditionally, the metal bottle top, the way they do, I don't know if they do it still today, but the way they do the metal bottle top is they take the metal, they have a cast of this bottle top, they put it over, and then through pressure, it completes the bottle top by wrapping it around the top of the bottle. The plastic one's a little bit different because that plastic has already been made and they just push it onto the bottle. That's the way I understand it is made. So now the question is, when it comes to a plastic bottle top, Can you take it off? Most people say yes. When it comes to a metal one, that might be problematic because it was never a kli. It was never a bottle top. It was just a piece of metal that's been put on and been squished into it. And when you take it off, and you know, the little part of the bottom goes, and it takes it off and it comes off, that actually creates a new vessel called a bottle top, according to many, and therefore that is problematic. That's why many say that what one should do, for example, with caramel grape juice is the only one I can think of. It's got that. It used to have, I don't know what they have anymore. It used to have that metal top. Some of the Cape Town grape juice, South African ones, also have that top, that metal top. So what many do is they'll take a knife or something and make a hole, again, or similar to what you were speaking about with the tin of tuna. They make a hole in the top of the bottle so that that bottle top never becomes a vessel. It's just the bottle top is a hole with a hole in it that you can't use for anything else. Do you not need to do it? My teachers, many of them said you don't have to, and that's generally the practice that I go with. Can you open a bottle and can you open those things on a Shabbat? Yes, you can. The next question that does come up is a milk carton, and the milk carton is a big one. Why is a milk carton a big one? So let's have a look at the milk carton. The way it works is that it runs through a machine, and the machine fills up the carton and then seals it. But it was never like in some manufacturing it goes on like a horizontal plane and it just seals and creates these cartons as it goes along. So therefore, according to many, the concern was are you making a new vessel in opening up the milk carton? So I just brought Rav Shlomo Zalman. Rav Shlomo Zalman said he was lenient. He said that the problem of making an opening, if you remember, it said an opening that comes in and an opening that goes out, is dependent on your intent to create a functional opening in a container, as opposed to one who's simply trying to get past the packaging to access the contents. Rav Shlomo Zalman felt that in opening a milk carton, your intent is to access the milk, not to make a functional opening. You're never going to put the milk back unless your kid takes too much milk together with too much cereal. The opening of the flaps of the carton is simply the easiest way to access the milk. And so he said the same applies to cans. Your intention is opening the can is to access the contents, and the reason for opening it is along the pre-made indentations just to make it easier. And so therefore, according to him, there was no issue on opening cans, opening bottles, opening milk cartons, and you don't have to worry about a makeh b'patish of creating a new vessel. Okay. Okay. So the next aspect that I want to look at is quite fascinating. And that is, okay. And that is shoot. I'm going to come back to Rav Weiss. The next is shoelaces. Why shoelaces? How does shoelaces become an issue of makeh b'patish? So you can easily think that there's nothing wrong with inserting a shoelace. You got a shoe. Your laces fall out, your laces are broken, it's Shabbos morning, you see that it's broken. What do? You go into your cupboard, you take out some laces. Some people have that, they actually have extra laces. Okay, if anyone has, let me know because I need. You take out the extra laces, put them in, Shalom Al Yisrael. What's the chap? What's the chap of putting in shoelaces in your shoe? However, Chazal tell us it's mataking money. It's making a kli. It's finalized like the makeh b'patish. Why? Because without the shoelace, the shoe is not as functional as you'd like it to be. So therefore, through threading the lace into the shoe is matak and mana. It fixes up this thing. Okay? So now the question is, how does this work? What happens if I've already got shoelaces? What happens if I've already got shoelaces in my shoes? But sometimes you open it up too much, and some of the portions of the lace come out. So if that happens, you're allowed to thread it, as long as there's still part of the shoelace in the shoe, because that's not fixing it up completely. However, the question is, when it comes to the actual putting in a new shoelace, that's where it becomes problematic. Does it make a difference whether the shoe's new or old? No, because the minute you take out the shoelaces from the shoe, you render the shoe less usable, let's call it. Nobody uses a shoe that's supposed to have laces without laces. That's by the fashion today, which is interesting in itself. Has a little bit of that wonky stuff. But anyway, so the point of the laces is really to fix the cleats, to fix the shoe. Okay, so now why don't we do the following? Let's say I've already got shoelaces in my shoe. Why can't I just continue to thread a new shoelace through it? And as I thread it through, the first shoelace goes out, the new shoelace comes in. So the reason you can't do that, because at the end of the day, the second that first lace leaves it, the shoe is no longer usable. Okay. What we come out with the shoes and the shoelace, is that sometimes we have something that we put action into that thing. And when we put action into that thing, we fix it up because we bring it into its real purpose. Okay. So for example, the most simple answer, it's a simple thing with that, is a balloon. Are you allowed to blow up a balloon or a soccer ball, for even a better argument? Are you allowed to do that on Shabbat? So the reality is that you shouldn't do it, because the minute if you've got a soccer ball that's never been blown up before, so it's like, you bought it all squished up and now you're going to blow it up and you're going to leck it like a Shabbat present. The problem is you can't do that, because the minute you blow it up, you've finalized the key. The finalization of the soccer ball is not the squished up soccer ball. It's the air inside it. Okay. But this is only when the purpose of the vessel is always to have air inside it. But if you've got things that just inflate and you deflate, you inflate and you deflate, so then it's not an issue. So for example, if you've got a little rubber duck that you play with your kids, you can blow it up, you can undo it. That's not a problem, because that's not matak and kli. Part of the kli is its deflation as well as its inflation. The Magen Avraham asks a great question. Are you allowed to thread a belt into your trousers, your pants, your dress, whatever it is that you're putting your belt in on Shabbos? Is that not matak and kli? Does that not render the garment better into a proper garment that's wearable? So he says, no, it's not. He says, at the end of the day, the belt is the belt, the garment is the garment. And even if you thread it, and threading in itself is like threading through the shoelaces, that's matak and the kli. You don't have to worry. At the end of the day, you take off your whatever you're wearing, you take out the belt, you hang the belt up. They don't become part and parcel of one kli, and so therefore we don't worry about that. According to that, if you're going to take out those things, the question it was asked, what happens if I've got black shoes that normally have black laces, and the only laces I've got are like, I don't know, psychedelic pink. They're the wrong color. Okay. Can I use that? Can I use those? So the answer to that is yes, you can, because even though it fixes up the shoes, it's not a permanent fix. It's just a fix up of the shoes for a very temporary thing. And at the end of the day, you're going to take those laces out because you don't really want your psychedelic pink shoelaces. But if you're going to leave it there for a while, then you can't do that. Okay. There is quite a controversial one that comes up now, which I wanted to look at, and maybe we'll finish on this. There's a book called the Menuchat Ava. He's one of the poskim, well-known, important sefer, important person to bear in mind, and it's brought down on the OU website. And the OU website, that we're talking about this whole story of Makeh B'Patish. And the reason why I mentioned that it's the OU website is because we're not talking about some radicals. We're talking about the OU, which is the mainstream modern Orthodox approach. That is our approach. Religious Zionist, it's like it's a normal, it's not crazy, it's not extremist, it's very simple. The Menuchat Ahava holds. Listen to this. What about tea bags? So you look into your tea bags, into your box of tea, and you know that they're always, nowadays, the way they manufacture them is they're two joined together. Right? Right. So now, can you separate the tea packets? What's the havam? What's the issue here? That you can't, you can, but you don't want to use two packets, so you break it off and you put it in the tea. Maybe, says the Menuchat Ava, right? It's Makeh B'Patish. Now, just to put this into context, if it's Makeh B'Patish, it's an Issur D'Oraisa. It's a Torah prohibition that we have to be aware of. Okay, it shocked me a little bit. The halacha shleima says, don't worry about makeh b'patish, right? Like you could still use the tea bags. You haven't done anything. You've just made it easier for you that you're not using 2 tea bags. You're using 1 tea bag. However, he says, there's another malacha that you have to be careful about. See how all these malachas are always tying together, and that's called korea, tearing. You're not allowed to tear. You're not allowed to tear. So even for food in this case, right? So he says that there's certain times you can tear for food, and there's certain times you can't. In this case, he says you shouldn't. So what you should do is separate it with a shinui, with some type of different. You don't do it normally. We moved into this house that we're staying for at the moment. And she said to me, just don't be surprised when you see spoons and forks by the alarms. So I don't know what she was talking about because I don't know what she was talking about. And then she explained to me that right, to put on the alarm, you have to do it with the shinui. So how you do it with the shinui, you do it with the fork because no one uses the fork to normally put on the alarm. Okay, so that's there. So shinui is where you do something a little bit different. And in doing it different, it's not the normal way to do it. And therefore, it's less of a problem. Okay, but the Hilchot Shabbat, which is a much later sefer, it's quite new. He says that it isn't Korea because there's no issue, right? Regarding makeh b'patish and machatech, says you can talk about it, but the bags aren't a utensil. Okay, so you've got different opinions. Some say yes, some say no, but the Shvut Yitzchak says no way. If you do it, there are 3 different Isurei Doraisa: Korea, makeh b'patish, and machatech. Machatech is measuring, where you're not allowed to measure. That's the same issue as tearing toilet paper, which we're going to, please God, next week, and all the aspects around that. But it's such an important thing to understand is that the Shut Yitzchak says that you could be over on 3 malachas. So the question is what you should do. The best thing to do, I suppose one should say, is try and prepare your tea bags before Shabbos. And if you didn't, you can separate them with a shinui or use 2 tea bags if you're really worried about the Shvut Yitzchak. And part of the process of what we're learning is to really sensitize ourselves to what to Shabbos. And I had a chat today with the Rosh Hashiva just about certain things on Shabbos, because we're going to be planning for the Shabbos project and what we're going to be doing. And one of the things that we're looking at is like highlighting like Shabbos in summer. So Shabbos in summer is swimming and riding bikes and things like that. And part of that came out in the discussion was there's certain things are permitted. They're permitted. You can't stop. There's no real way to say that they're asur on a proper halachic point of view. But everybody's heard of like the spirit of Shabbos, but it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate. And so one has to ask oneself that perhaps you can find the heterium to break the bags, etc., etc. One has to ask oneself is, do you want to make your Shabbos different, special, even in the making of tea, even though you're using a kli shlishi, etc., etc.? So maybe one wants to make it a little different. If one does, then one has got a recipe to do that by doing it before Shabbos, or by doing it with a shinui or something of that nature. Okay, we spoke about musical instruments just to go into that. There's a gezerah d'Rabbanan, right? Musical instruments we can't use. Clapping and dancing, we said we can break musical instruments. And the last one, and this is the end, we're going to end on this tonight, please God, is toveling kalim. Why can't you tovel kalim? You can't tovel kalim because you're not allowed to use kalim until they're toveled. If you're not allowed to use a kli until it's toveled, it means what your toveling does is the makeh b'patish of the kli. It finishes the kli. Until you've done the tefillah, it's not really a kli. And if that's the case, we need to remember that's how important tefillah's kalim is. How important it is to take your things to the mikveh, because when you take your things to the mikveh, then what we ensure is that we complete them. It's not just putting them in the mikveh. We complete them. You can't do that on Shabbos because that's makeh b'patish. And so therefore, we've learned quite a lot today with a lot of different things. The most important thing for me was just highlighting that things that we think are just normal, that we could just do on every day, even those things, we have to bear in mind what Shabbos, where Shabbos is all about. how Shabbos fits, where Shabbos fits, and what it does. And I just want to just quickly give you a quick idea. We spoke about the shoelaces. So in this week's Parsha, there is there's reference to shoelaces. Don't know if anybody knows where the reference to shoelaces is. So I'll tell you, put you out of your misery. Avram Avinu goes and these four kings who beat the five kings, the four kings kidnap Lot. And Avram Avinu goes and he saves Lot from the four kings. And when he comes and he brings not only Lot, he brings all the spoils of war that they had taken and all the people that they had taken, and brings everybody back to Sodom. Now remember, Sodom is a terrible place. It's a terrible place. And the king of Sodom says to him, you know what? Give me back all the people, and you take whatever you take, all the booty, the spoils of war. We don't have to worry. Why? Because we are a very successful group of people, and we can rebuild ourselves. We don't have to worry about that'll be your reward. And Avram Avinu makes a point, and he says that I haven't taken a shoelace or the strap of a boot. I haven't taken any of that. And not even that. I've taken absolutely nothing. Why is that such an important thing? Because the shoelace and the strap of the boots are the things that are kind of like easily hidden. So Avram Avinu says, I never took that. And the Gemara says that as a result of Avram Avinu saying that, and a result of Avram obviously doing that, he gets rewarded with two things. What does he get rewarded with? He gets rewarded with two mitzvahs. The mitzvah of tzitzit, which is a thread like a shoelace, and the mitzvah of tefillin. So the question is, why does Avram Avinu get rewarded for saying he never took anything that didn't belong to him with tzitzit and tefillin? Like, what's that? What's the chap? So the answer is, or one could say that the answer is quite simple, is that Avram Avinu, in not taking from anyone and from anything, says he doesn't want it to be that people will say that he was enriched by the king of Sodom, who's a terrible man, a king of Sodom whose values are completely different to him, etc., etc. He only wants to be enriched by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the ultimate enrichment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he gives us is not wealth, is not the things that we have, is not our material possessions. But the ultimate enrichment that we're given by HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the ability to do mitzvot, is the ability to serve Hashem in a way that is different, and it's different but the same every day. And what are the two things that a man does every single day? He puts on his tzitzit and he puts on his tefillin. And every single day, that takes us back to the incredible integrity of Avram Avinu. So please God, we should be well. We should think about the things that we do on Shabbos. Please remember, we've had a couple of questions already. If there are any questions that you'd like answered, please send them to me. You can WhatsApp directly to me, and maybe that'll be the topic of our shir next week. Have a beautiful, beautiful week and a gorgeous Shabbos. God bless everybody.
Thanks, Rabbi.